So today we're going to talk about addiction, but we're going to approach it from a different angle. Not as some kind of moral failing, but as a deeply human story. A story about pain, sure, but also about survival. And believe it or not, about the incredible potential we have to transform ourselves. You know, the incredible physician and author Gabor Mate, he doesn't pull any punches. He says the word addict actually comes from Latin for a slave who's in debt. And man, that's exactly what it feels like, right? A total loss of choice. You feel like a slave to a craving. It's this intense, powerful state of being that most people just don't understand. Okay, so if addiction is this kind of slavery, then how in the world do you break the chains? That's really the big question we're digging into. What if the escape plan isn't about gritting your teeth and fighting harder? What if it's about looking deeper, about finding the person you were before all the pain started? All right, let's get into it. Before we can find a way out, we've got to understand the prison itself. I mean, why does addiction feel so inescapable, like you're completely trapped? Well, the answer is actually found in a pretty fascinating idea from psychology. This right here is a huge concept. It comes from these famous experiments where dogs that couldn't escape from repeated shocks eventually just gave up. They stopped trying to escape at all, even when the door was wide open. And the key thing is, it's not something they were born with. It's a learned response. After you fail to change a painful situation enough times, your brain literally learns that there's no point in trying. Sound familiar at all? And this is where it all clicks. This is exactly what Gabor Mate is talking about. When he says addiction isn't the problem, it's an attempt at a solution. Those uncontrollable, painful events, for so many people, that's deep emotional wounding, often from childhood. The addictive behavior is just a desperate attempt to numb that pain. So get this, the addiction isn't the real cage. It's the messed up attempt to escape a cage that was built a long, long time ago. Okay, so if addiction is a prison, the good news is there are a whole bunch of escape routes. There isn't just one map to get to freedom. Different maps are going to work for different people. Let's just take a quick look at a couple of the really big ones. So on one hand, you've got these huge programs like Alcoholics Anonymous, which are built around the 12 steps. The whole idea there is spiritual surrender, admitting you're powerless and handing things over to a higher power. It's helped millions of people. But then, on the other side of the coin, you have something like Smart Recovery. It's not spiritual, it's secular, and based on psychology tools, teaching you practical skills to manage yourself and your behaviors. Total empowerment. And these are just two examples of the many, many ways people find their way to recovery. But beyond those kinds of models, there are other, more intensive paths. One of them involves this really radical inner journey, a journey designed to fundamentally change how you see and experience the world from the inside out. And that brings us to something called the paradigm process. It's this really comprehensive way of looking at recovery, not just as stopping a behavior, but as a journey away from our personality, the mask we all build to survive, and back to what it calls our sacred self, which is our true, authentic core. This quote right here, this is the key to the whole thing. The idea is that your life on the outside, your job, your relationships, your health, all of it, is just a mirror of your programming on the inside. So if you're running on a program of fear or trauma, guess what your reality is going to look like? To change your life, you have to literally rewrite the code inside your own mind. And this isn't just a metaphor, it's based in neurology. The whole goal of the paradigm process is to shift you from operating out of your limbic system, that's our primitive, reactive survival mind, and move you into your prefrontal cortex, which is the seat of your higher consciousness, your sacred self. It's basically a move from living on a reactive autopilot to living consciously and creatively. So how do we actually do that? How do we make the shift? Well, the very first step is to figure out what's keeping us stuck in survival mode in the first place. This process calls them the masks of our personality, or even ego insurgents. These are the parts of us that were built to protect us, but now they're the ones holding us prisoner. Think of these like old software that's full of bugs. The controller who's trying to manage this deep-seated fear of things being uncertain, or the perfectionist who's terrified of failing, or the victim who is just stuck in that learned helplessness we talked about. The thing is, these aren't who you really are. They're just survival strategies that are way past their expiration date. Okay, so if the problem is these outdated masks, then the solution has to be a step-by-step process for taking them off and recovering the authentic person that's buried underneath. And that's done through what are called the 10 pathways home. Now, this is the really brilliant part of the whole thing. It's a dual journey. So you don't just let go of being a controller and leave a big empty space. You actively recover its positive, authentic counterpart. So you let go of that need to control everything. And in its place, you consciously practice and build self-love. You release that victim story, and you actively build real resilience. It's a process of conscious, deliberate replacement. And the main tool you use for this journey is something called contemplative intelligence, or CQ. The easiest way to think about it is thinking about your thinking. It's the skill of being able to step back and just watch your own thoughts and feelings without getting carried away by them. And get this, the research behind this shows that developing this skill literally rewires your brain, shifting power away from that reactive survival brain to your conscious, creative brain. So, what's the end result of all this deep inner work? It's not just about stopping a bad habit. It is a complete, fundamental shift, a paradigm shift in how you experience your entire life. And look, this isn't just some feel-good theory. Research on people who have gone through programs using this process shows a documented jump in happiness and a drop in stress anywhere from 18 to a whopping 68%. That's real, measurable change that's possible when you do this kind of work. So here's the bottom line, the most important takeaway. The ultimate goal here is total liberation. It's about moving from being a powerless victim, a slave to your cravings in your past, to becoming the empowered creator of your own reality. It's about finally healing that original wound so deeply that the need to escape just dissolves. And that brings us to one final thought for you to take with you. Looking back at that list of masks, the controller, the perfectionist, the victim, does one of them kind of jump out at you? What one small mask could you even begin to think about letting go of starting today to take that first step back to your own sacred self?